Our last video on the renaming and creating the metadata, I left the job undone. So what we're going to do real quick is not only does the sequence names within the list have to be changed, but we also have to change the name of the list itself. So we're going to do that real quick because everybody, from the previous video, you should see or remember how this was done. So I'm going to fly through this real quickly. I've selected those. We're going to do rename the elements rather than the list. We're going to go in, we're going to grab those first 11 positions, we see that they just got trimmed. We're going to batch rename again, next, rename the elements. We're going to add to the end underscore 2020, finish, that was done. And then you can see that once you get used to this, you'll start flying through everything that you've learned before. This we're going to want at the beginning. And if I remember right, this was USA underscore Colorado lab dash that and finish. And we can see everything's named appropriately. Okay. So what we want to do now is create a quick workflow on screening our consensus sequences based on metadata, that CSV file that we made, and then concatenating them into a sequence list. So for this, we'll create a new workflow, and instead of dragging out the development of this workflow, I'm going to develop the whole workflow in one video here. You should be experts at that now. Let's file, save as, and we'll call this let's call this Consensus Fasta. Okay. Or Consensus Multifasta. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with an input element. And this will be a workflow input, and we'll call this consensus sequences, or consensus sequences. We'll have multiple. And we're actually going to want to iterate this one. So we're going to go over, we want to bring several of these sequences together into one file. Bring this iterate, join. And we're going to make sure that these sequences are a list. So what we do here is we're going to add an element for create list. Oops. There's a create sequence list here. Create track list. Okay, it's not create sequence list, it's actually, I think, just sequence list. There we go, new sequence list. So we're going to iterate and output them into a new sequence list. And then we're going to collect and distribute again. But what we're going to do this time, which is different, is the sequence list is going to get fed in here, but we're going to change the outputs. And we'll change these outputs to yes and no. Finish. So we could see the yes and no. And then we will export the yeses to a sequence list. Where, let's find that again. Sequence list. And it's only the yeses that are being output there. So we'll call this combined sequence list. And we will export this both as a workflow output. And we will also export it as a concatenated file. So add element, we're going to, where's your export? Here we go, export. And let's see what we want to choose here. Let's do this as a FASTA file. Say OK. And then we could also choose where we want to export that to. We could do the desktop QIAGEN folder again. And finish. And save. So what this workflow should do is grab our sequences, iterate through them. It's going to look at the metadata, it's going to select those that are passing, and then it's going to move that into a combined sequence list, and it'll save it both within the program, but it'll also export it out to our QIAGEN directory. So let's try this. If I select all our files here and say run for the workflow, so they're selected. Let's grab all of them. We're going to use metadata. We're going to select the metadata table. Now this is where things will get a little bit different. Okay, and we get to select a column. So we're going to select the column pass because our pass is going to say yes or no. Select next. It's assigning the metadata value yes to, it's assigned to yes on our workflow here, and no is assigned to no. And you could see the ones that are going to pass. You could see the ones that are going to fail. And the export destination's already been populated with QIAGEN. And we're going to save this. And we will save a new step in here. And this is just going to contain the sequences. So we'll call this Multifasta results. And finish. This should go pretty quickly. Looks like it's finished running. Now if I come over here and I look at this new sequence FASTA list, you just use Notepad to open this up. You could see here we have our concatenated file with all of our passing data. You can see there's 62, and let's find, and we'll look for that next emblem. 62 passed, 64, 65, 67, 68, 70, 66, etc. So all the passing ones are in there. Now the trick that I was talking about for submission, and this is just as simple as you could say find and replace, where we want to replace every underscore with a /, replace all, and now it's in the format, say this is the spheres format. And that's how you create your exported concatenated FASTA file, at the same time screening it on metadata for the pass-fail. Okay, I don't think I have anything else to add. So what we did with this series of videos is we went through, we saw how to import our sequences, we saw how to create a workflow, get results, look at our variant calls, but then also QC our data and give a pass-fail value, use that as metadata, concatenate a FASTA file, correctly rename our specimens for the format for spheres, and then there'll probably be some additional formats that you'll have to do for GISAID versus GenBank. But it's taking you through the whole process from beginning to end, from getting your reads to being able to share them with different database repositories. There'll be more videos in this series, but this concludes this initial set of videos. Thanks a lot for watching.